One of the most mysterious scenes of the Torah is when the Eternal sends Moses to take a bronze serpent because of the people's sin by having blasphemed. It was, of course, a shadow of the Messiah who would become sin represented by the serpent and who would bear the curse for the people. Yeshua humbled himself to the lowest, as we read curse made for us in Galatians 3:13. Messiah liberated us from Torah's curse, having become a curse for us, for it is written, "Cursed is everyone who hangs in a tree." And of course, the snake that is good later misrepresented. It was taken as a symbol, as a universal symbol for in the word faith and speaking a system that became of a famous snake interviewing and later medicine and was adopted into the medicine. However, where those who continue to worship the snake and all truth, it was destroyed, the symbol remains today as a symbol of healing and health for the entire contemporary world. Besides that, much darker messages are written involving generic healing manipulation and the offspring of the snake. So here on the left, you can see the image that World Health Organization and most of the World Health systems around the world that you can have, and it's a caduceus of Greek. It's a Greek mythology, or pantheon. The staff of a rod Asclepius is one of the Greeks. Is for the Greeks, or Asclepius for the Roman, and the ancient symbol associated with the Greek god Asclepius, in which the healing of the sick truth medicine. It's a rod which is coiled serpent, representing the Greek god Asclepius, or Asclepius for the Romans. In Greek mythology, Asclepius had a rod that has the power to cure all diseases. Who are we voting to? Who are we looking for to see our medicines? We keep going. Within pagan cultures, they are not only identified with symbols, but they have been assigned powers to perform spells, curses in men, living under mysticism and religious esotericism. So you can see here, we can see a lot of those religious systems. In every single religious system, they have a kind of a symbol that where they represent the stars, represents mystical forms. You can see the famous Arab, the yin yang, in the Chinese culture, the Arabic hand, Arabic Hansa, in other words, the Magen David, the swastika, the Knights of Malta, the Constantine, the Jesuits, and the Roman Church emblem. You see the evangelical Christian emblems, and you see also the occultist or the atheist, even in here, and some also of the Christians too, and the Sikh religion people is in there too. So many different cultures in here that not obviously it was doing that they know that because of it, if all these stakes exist, it's because they are real. So we're gonna read on the there shall not be found in Deuteronomy 18:10-14. There shall not be found on you one of who passes his son or his daughter through the fire, one that uses divination, or observer of clouds, or one of fortune telling, spellcaster, or magic charmer, or one consulting spirits, or a wizard, or one communicating with the dead. For all doing these things are abomination to the Eternal, and because of these filthy acts, Elohim, Eternal, your Elohim, is expelling these nations before you. You shall be perfect, Tamim, with Eternal, your Elohim. For these nations, whom you shall spell, listen to observers of clouds, and those divining. But as to you, Eternal Elohim has not given to you to do so. And why? Because all of this indeed exists, and when Eternal gives these commandments and prohibit all a series of things, and it does because it truly exists. It's obviously it knows that is ruled by dark forces, hidden satanic forces. And obviously, what the Eternal was doing is to protect us from his town. Okay, so all the symbols currently that we talk about, we're going to talk about too right now, they're awarded power. They award them certain protections to carry out certain actions, and that's why the Eternal does prohibit any contact with this type of systems. Therefore you shall be carefully to be on guard yourselves, for those have not seen any likeness in the day of the Eternal spoke to you in Horeb, or in the midst of the fire, lest you act corruptly and make yourself a carved image, a likeness of a figure, the shape of a male or female, the shape of any animal in the earth, the shape of any winged bird that flies in the heavens, the shape of any creeping thing in the ground, and the shape of any fish in the waters under the earth. And that you not lift your eyes towards the heavens, and shall see the sun, and the moon, and the stars, all the hosts of the heavens, and you be drawn away and worship them, and serve them, which Eternal your Elohim has allotted to the peoples under the heavens. Deuteronomy 4:15 to 19. No, so we see, well, the sun, this is the star king and his worship, and he took me and took the inner court of the house of the Eternal, and behold, near to the entrance of the temple of the Eternal, between the entrance and the altar, like 25 men, and their backs turned to the temple of the Eternal, and their faces towards the east, and they adore or worship the sun, prostrating towards the east. That's Ezekiel 8:16. Through the abominations of Judah. Some worship has very ancient origins and also went through Israel, and Christianity continues to worship. Much with one hand and the other hand and sight, but always was doing to face them, to worship them. One of the masses in December, on the December 24th, of May, that is always consecrated to this the newborn baby, the holy baby, or divine Jesus, what they said, is one of the idolatrous and most pagan customs in the Christmas, where they love the birth of Tammuz, the divine boy. It's in ancient Egypt, and will represent the circle like the sun, and the cross representing the enlightenment of the sun through the earth in every single season. The stellar which Tammuz is born, and good to see here where the Vatican City. Here is the city of the Vatican according to the equinoxes light. It's the first summer, winter enters into different positions, and you're going to hit specific places where it is the famous backs of Christ, the peaks of Christ with the Roman peace, and in the center of the alignment of the obelisk where is represented. Well, and this is just to give an example. Now we will focus on a symbol that is a mystery of own and strangers, and a very representative symbol that has been a banner for the Jewish state for at least 62 years already, maybe. This in a Jewish state, and it's not easy to talking about it, since that we have identified it is a nation, and with a race, and a minimal attack in the Jewish state has become an anti-Semitic attitude. Even if it's not, the Eternal has always been forbidding the people the links with paganism and idolatry. So the Star of David, or rather is called the Solomon's Shield. So Star of David is also called the Star of David, or Magen David. Magen David is also David's shield, or Solomon's shield, is one of the symbols of Judaism, although traditionally the religious hallmark of the Jewish cult was the menorah, the emblem, who made up of two overlapping equilateral triangles forming a six-pointed star, was frequently used to distinguish communities and districts reserved for Jews, or the Jewish quarters that we were talking about in previous chapters of the Khazars, from the age of average hussars. With the establishment of the State of Israel, the Star of David on the blue and white flag became the symbol of the state. You can find this over Wikipedia. That's one of the good results over Wikipedia. What is not said that both the hexagram and the pentagram are the most important Kabbalistic symbols or Babylonian witchcraft. It is the talisman of Saturn. Saturn is another name for Lucifer, and is used to conjure demons and perform incarnations and spells. In some of the ceremonies, it is indented a circle into the center in which the participant stands to protect himself, apparently or supposedly, from other evil spirits. The paradox is that many times these symbols appeared in Jewish synagogues and Christian churches, even in rock groups, tattoos, rings, and earrings. So this is how the talisman are shown within esoteric environment. The esoteric environment. So mostly we knew before from a previous study the esoteric atmosphere between the talisman of Saturn, which is the talisman Saturn is what we can see here. Of those Hebrew letters, and rather they come from the Aramaic, is what the use of Chaldean language used in Babylon to do the spells. Remember that the letters are the same, but the language change. One is Hebrew and the other one is Aramaic. Okay, and that's Saturn's talisman that you can see even finding over the internet is well known for them, and you can buy it to the corroborated that anyway you can pass through these esoteric stores, and it's well known. It's a very symbol represented into oscurantism. So now here put all the talisman they use in esotericism, not just the Saturn, but they worship also this uses as a talisman to invoke different kind of protections or sigils, they call it, through the esotericism. So it's one for every single planet. You're gonna see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 planets, or 6, or one for each point and one in the center, whatever they might use it, or the sigil between the months that they can see according to the moon or position of the sun, so they can invoke their things, whatever they do. Here I'm gonna start with the hexagram, and this is from the book The Golden Dawn, volume 3, and they show this is a very occultist book. They show the hexagram is a powerful symbol representing the operation of the 7 planets and the presence of the Sephiroth and the letters of the 7-letter name, whatever. The hexagram is sometimes called the signet of symbol of macrocosm. Just a pentagram is called signet star, symbol of the microcosm. Okay, so every single one has a weight for invoke the spirits or the protections. They're sigils, they call it. So that's more from the pentagram. It's the second image from the same book. From the duration of the planets, one of each angle is its hexagram. Should you see the reason of sympathy existing between each superior planet and the certain inferior planet. That is how which is exactly opposite to the hexagram, and this is a result of that the triangle they're invoking and banishing hexagram's counterchange, whatever. In the supreme riddle, the hexagram, the signs of 5 or 6 gray are given, but not those for grays in the first order, depending on what they have. No, more down says, no, also the Sephira are not to be invoked in every single occasion, but only with due care and solemnity. Of all of these forces, the Keter and Chokmah demand the greatest purity and solemnity in the heart and minds of him who would penetrate the mysteries. It means they have to be a strong wizard, something like that. One more, and this started with a pentagram. The pentagram is a powerful symbol representing the operation of eternal spirit in the 4 elements and their divine presence. Or letters and name, that name, Yeshua. Again, we're gonna see about what this name again, or which is the same thing of Joshua or Joshua or Jahashua. It's not Joshua. The elements themselves is a symbol of the cross as governed by the eternal, but the letter Shin representing the Ruach of eternal. Yeshua or Jehovah. But anyway, they later the latter when the letter Shin is placed between ruling the earth, and the other three elements are the tetragrammaton. We're gonna see about that a little bit further. So this see again, that is the difference between a 6-pointing star, the 5 pointing star, pentagram and hexagram, is not other just by the invocations to the different planets. Okay, so here we're gonna see the circle snake, which is also very well used into the esotericism chops. I forgot about the name. All the ancient cults were related to the worship of the sun, the moon, the stars, in addition to the fact that the fallen angels were represented in the form of deities that they ended up worshiping. In the last one, I have the Egyptian one with all the deities and what they represented, and you can see it in there. And in the right one, on the right side, you can see the 7 major Akkadian deities. It's a Akkadian cylinder seal dating up to 2300 BC before Mashiach. Inanna, Utu, Enki, and Ishmud. So in Sumerian mythology, it's a study of spiritual, and this is taken from here, the Sumerian mythology, the image of an literal achievement of the 3rd millennium BC, revised edition, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. You can find it in there. In Kabbalah, these symbols appear in the 5-pointed star known as the Star of David, the 6-pointed as the Seal of Solomon, and 8-pointed as the Star of Eve. The hexagram is a symbol for the Babylonian mystery school that has been adopted by the Jewish mysticism, or the Kabbalistic Jewish mystery school, and therefore they were the first Jews to use this symbol. The true name of the symbol is the double interlocking triangle of Solomon, or the Seal of Solomon. It also is the sign of the Vishnu god in the Hindu religion, or the god of the generation. You can see here in the right a representation of Shiva and Shakti. Both together come the Murugan, and the 6-pointed star in the hexagram is one of the oldest universal symbols that goes to the way back to ancient India, being known as the Shatkana, which represented the union of a masculine and feminine energies of the soul. Listen to this. This unification gives the birth to Murungan Araka Krishna, Oshkanda, Oshkadgyeya, or Satanat Kumara, being a complete androgynous representation of the magnum opus, or what is known the Godhead. He was sometimes described having 6 heads, defining 6 cities or power that are bestowed to one or over course of the spiritual development. His heads also represent the 6 syllables of the mantra whatever, denoting that God is the primal sound. Look how pagan this sound is. It's also a syllable of the sun, which is associated with the 666, the number of life and perfection. This is known into the Hindu theology. All right. Keep going further. Wayne B. Chandler wrote in his book Ancient Future on page 69, in India, the 6-pointed star is called the Star of Vishnu, reflecting the cosmic union between Kali and Shiva, the male and female formers of the universe. So here are the start of the creation by the Egyptians as well. And it wrote down in there, it's an ancient Hindu emblem called Sri Yantra. The circle represents the world in which the living exists. The triangle pointing upwards shows the male creator, and the triangle with the apex downwards, the female. Distinct yet united. These have a word within themselves in which the male is uppermost, the central circle image be the worship is placed. When used, the figure is placed in the ground with Brahma to the east and Lakshmi to the west. Both of them are Hindu gods too. Then a relic of the saint of the image of Buddha, like the modern papal crucifix, is added to the shrine of the worship of the complete. and it has now been adopted in Christian churches and the Freemasons lodges, some to the cross. It will be noticed that the male emblem point to the rising sun, and the female triangles point to the setting sun. When the earth seems to receive the god into her couch, Source: Ancient Pagan and Modern Christian Symbolism by Thomas Ayman, New York, 1875. You have it see it here on the right bottom, the figure 33 on page 26. So, these geometric figures are known in symbols which invoke evil forces, spells, and currently known as connected directly with the Sumerians. They are so-called sacred geometry in different cultures as well. So we're gonna see another one. The sacred geometry, which represent the powers of the fallen, used to make evil fall into the Garden of Eden. The sacred geometry is connected to the flower of life and the cube of the archangel known as Metatron, twin brother, which according to Kabbalah he extracted from his own soul to create all this and develop it into Greek philosophy. Here representing the geometry of Plato's polyhedral that are nothing other than the souls of Metatron's soul. So you can see here from the third, the tetrahedral, then the cube, the octahedral, the crossahedron, the decahedron, and then a Merkaba. In the middle is going to be the getaway between the different dimensions. Okay, so the sacred geometry in quotes is a connection between the flower life and the cube, like we read in the Archangel Metatron, twin brother, with Sandalphon, in which according to Kabbalah has extracted his own and create all of this. So in here we see the famous polyhedra that Plato do not believe that he really did not know geometry and shapes and math and all of that in the Greek philosophy was based on religion, and what they were trying to understand is the hidden mysteries of the famous sacred geometry. Okay, so when they come together and all of this give us here's what you know, the famous Metatron. I'm gonna next picture, and this is the esoteric interpretation of Archangel Metatron, showing the Metatron cube, which is extracted from his soul to create this origin of sacred geometry. So the important to see some of these things that will connect us to reach the famous hexagram, and then in the Star of David. Okay, so you guys can look it through the internet at this representation of the Archangel Metatron or Sandalphon. We'll find something similar. Okay, within mystic Kabbalistic Judaism, they believe this is Enoch, and they said that this not happened to make this archangel of light. That Enoch came to be an archangel of light, and this figure is the famous sacred geometry that what you can see on the top of him, and it's already here and the hexagram, if you can notice it, and with the equilateral triangles intertwined and geometric figures that are going to see are they gone to conclusion. This piece shows the divine development of geometry, and this is the theory of the golden number. With this represents all the creation that actually is known like the Fibonacci numbers, or the numbers of Fibonacci. Another interesting thing that currently has discovered that the human being is created in spectacular ways, as proportions and dimensions all throughout creation. It's a number of formulas, and have represented here on this curve. Okay, so because we saw in the beginning of Genesis first that the Eternal emanates Mashiach and gives shape, and then Mashiach does all the heavenly hosts, and we saw in our timeline that it sets one of the tallest, and who is the great cherub, that was Lucifer. With him, he is the co-creator, participates in creation. Obviously, he knows all the geometry and say some these numbers and math, and indeed a mathematician universe are pure numbers that metaphysicians and the universe and energy and combine are true, and geometries. Obviously, the universe is geometry, and what is related to such knowledge from the fallen angels. So here represents the fruit of flower of life, and this knowledge was transmitted from the Sumerian civilizations. You can see here in different representations, different cultures. You can see it's a ball here in the number 3 from Chinese. Mostly of the other ones are from between Greek, Sumerians, and Arabians. In the bottom right, you can see this is Sri Yantra that we talked about already, and this is start of the perpetual life in the creation. In the little bit of the left, you see the Metatron, and the right one is another representation of it. How interesting is how the flower of life, this is all the symbol ever found in the Sumerians is described here. Around here, there's the slides and also appear in famous circles and a representation of books of Sumerian culture and religion based on made of pure circles that you start with 1 and then 11 around it, and they're in the center. From there surrounding, and you can see that is the true hexagram, and this hexagon is also the same as a three-dimensional that you can draw here. Now down either here it seems it's a cube. Realize the part in the top to the base, and if you draw a line in here and you obtain a cube. Right part of the left is part of the cube. So that's here another of the hexagon is always present and always related to the fruit of life or the flower of life, which it's called in the Kabbalah the cube of Metatron. The hexagon is always presented all related to the flower of life, and it's called the Kabbalah the Metatron's cube, one of the ones that, as we said, extracted from his own soul to be able to create. Here's a presentation of the Merkavah and Hebrew chariot of fire that says in the Kabbalah that the transport angels and archangels. Okay, in fact, when you talk about Elias, and you remember that the day when he goes in a chariot of fire, they call it this is a Merkavah. This is a chariot of fire, and literally in the Bible is written. Well, those Kabbalistic mystical Jews believe that this chariot of fire is nothing but the hexagram. That is like this, three-dimensional, okay, and is capable of traveling between the time and space. And we're going here to see one more geometric shape, and I'm gonna go ahead and talk a little bit of this famous painting, Leonardo da Vinci, and later on we're gonna see the trace of a man in a circle on a square, like proportions are defined. So here you see alright the representation of the true esoteric Hinduism, the flower of life, the cube, the eye, and all the chakras. See the lotus flower, etc., etc., etc. So that's another representation of the Hinduism of religion, representation of where it comes from, mostly of it. In India, the 6-pointed star is known as Sri Yantra, the Hinduism. That's the other representation of the star. The supreme light is another coincidence that the name is very similar to another name of Satan, in turn, Yantra, instrument or machine. So that Surya Yantra means instrument of supreme light. Other words, instrument of Satan. Can the instrument of Satan be given by the Eternal? Well, never. It never. So if you wonder why Hinduism have so many deities and is connected to spiritual things, well, it's precisely because those deities, all those entities that we can finally understand what they are, fallen angels, they were fallen beings that they approached from different cultures. They give them results, they give them knowledge, they give them elevation, and believe that it was aligning. And that's why everything finally connected as such life, spiritual life, meditation, and here they come as religions like the Krishna today. Nothing like Hinduism itself. Well, Buddha is another stream from them. Well, they don't believe in none, to argue, but because they give just this elevation, this aligning is known within the religious context as illumination, that supposedly makes them reach a high consciousness, and that apparently makes them reach and connect with the cosmic force. If they call him with the supreme energy, that's why they do the yoga. Actually, when they wanted yoga, they do yoga, and it's known as realize that pyramid shape in the pyramid. Okay, so they do yoga. It's a position that they may of thinking, so they can reach a connection with the, they say, with the cosmic force, with the universal force. And well, that give them the results, and it's for so many deities. So that's talking about this Surya Yantra. The six-pointer star appears in the I Ching of Book of Changers, one of the oldest Chinese documents where the six-pointed star appears and contains the divinatory system comparable to geometry, and Fu Shi, one of the first rulers of China between 2850 before Mashiach and 2750 before Mashiach, said that he received by supernatural revelation the trigrams organized as hexagrams. You can see both the image bound down there, and the trigram of I Ching, that we can see that long before the exodus of Israel from the land of Egypt, the six-pointed star was used in China for divinatory purposes. And you can search all the internet, all of this information as well. So, very interesting. In 18 to 600 before Mashiach, the six-pointed star was used as a symbol to represent the art of alchemy, and it was formed by joining the triangle of water with the triangle of fire. Next, we can see the triangle of water and fire on alchemy, and when those are placed on the top of the other, the six-pointed star or shield of David, or Solomon's seal, is formed. The six-pointer is a symbol of alchemy. So we can see from the mystical school of Horus in the Egyptians, they use also the alchemy into the spells and castings. So it's something is well known to today's day also, the alchemical symbols. Between the alchemical symbols and sigils, they involve the 9 regions of the planets, which they attribute some kind of energy of a protection, and depending of the time of the year or the day. Okay. Here from the Sumerians, from this book, and it's Nimrud. Remember, it was a city built time before Nimrod from another king, a Syrian city between approximately 1300 to the 16 BC before Mashiach. The Syrian king Shalmaneser in the 1200s to 1245 built Kalhu, or called Nimrud, into a major city during the Middle Assyrian Empire. And you're gonna see between these empires, they have all these fragments. It's called the Ivory Plaques, or the Ivory. It's called the Nimrod and Ivory remains. So this Ivory Plaque is a fragment for Ivory Plaque in the Iraq Museum in Baghdad. It's from the Nimrod city from 800 to 700 before Mashiach. Next one, from Greece. The Mycenaean religions belief seems to have very, very similar of those other ancient civilizations of the time, and share 2 important characteristics: polytheistic and syncretism. Polytheism is a belief that many gods, or syncretism reflects a willingness to add foreign gods into a belief system, even if they had if the new additions don't really exactly fit. When the Mycenaeans first arrived to the Aegean, they likely believed in the pantheon of gods hidden by supreme sky god, common into the Indo-European people. All Indo-European people, they believe in one supreme god, but in other lower gods. His name was Dyaus, in which in Greek became Zeus, following contact with Minoars and the earth goddesses. These goddesses were incorporated into pantheon, and that is likely the path following by Hera, Artemis, and Aphrodite. This is taken from the ancientgreece.org, and you see on the right side the golden rosettes, the golden 6-petal rosettes in the Archaeological Museum of Istanbul. In the Mycenaean kingdom, 1600 before Mashiach. And you see the flower of life in there, the 6-pointed star. You can see there very clearly. There's no doubt about it. One more, and this one from the Cyprus, a cup with a mythological scenes and flower of life pattern, and this in the center visible Lord Museum, Italian, Cyprus, 800 to 700 before Mashiach. Cyprus. And the right side, a stone floored with a field of interlocking trickle decoration from a palace of a king, Ashurbanipal, visible in the Museum of Lorburn. Related objects are also visible in the British Museum, and thus artifact numbers, the British Museum numbers. Northern Iraq, 645. Northern Iraq, 645, and you see there perfectly the flower of life. One more from Akkadian. Herodotus mentions a tribe with a similar name as one of the 10 or 15 Persian tribes in Persis. They live in the valleys between the Susis and Persis in what is known to southwestern Iran. The southwestern Mardi is described in Arcus as one of the 4 predatory mountain peoples. What is this? Of the southwest, along with the Susians, Uxi, and Elimeans. Of these 4 nomadic groups, they were the only tribe linguistically Iranian. This took it for this place here, Iranian peoples of Iran, Pre-Islamic Encyclopedia Iranica, iranicaonline.org. So on the left, you see a silver goblet from the Museum of Lorben. On the side with the object was unreachable for visitors because of the goblet stands in a thick basement, but picture of the object description shows a full flower life pattern in the bottom, probably very much similar to the silver goblet and their side decoration of Stockholm. Unfortunately, only very little is known about the Malik culture, but artifacts found from the Royal Cemetery. This was found in a Royal Cemetery in Marlik, and it shows the excellence of the gold and silver metalwork. Marlik is one of the cities built in the northern Iran from the 1500 to 1100 before Mashiach. Marlik is the site of a royal cemetery, and some research you can go and find and do your own work, and then artifacts found on the site date back to the 3,000 years ago. That's close to 1,000 before Mashiach. Some of the artifacts contain amazing workmanship with gold. Malik is named after the Amrat people. Interesting. And well, the famous Merkaba is a famous played at the Metrotron from 1 square of with base 10 and everything like that. So mystical numbers, as you start to combine them, maybe they're given an example of the process which is to do, but how to do the start of Metatron. This distinctive feature is one of the cubes that can be rotated in the vertical axis, and one person can push it slowly with some effort, and two and more people without problems. Many people who travel to New York consider it by many turning the cube. They carry a ritual that indicates that they have arrived in the city. Sitting and falling asleep in the shade of the cube is also popular. So here, that cube that you can rotate is in a Chase Manhattan, and it's a monument stretched between place on the front of the Rockefeller Bank in Manhattan, the Chase. We talk about previous chapter about the Rockefellers in Manhattan. How funny, because they keep saying through this cube who will they be worshipping and who they are trying to serve. Well, the Rockefellers will already know the history, and we can see in other places, movies and technology, especially in the Apple brand. There are several movies that you can carefully see that they appear in many movies, and that they took instructed And this speaks of these messages that talk about through the cube and a system to invoke not just demons, but from the underworld and another scenes of the underworld. So you can see in here the Apple brand, one of the Discovery Science Foundation Museum in Santa Ana, California, and the Star Wars subject theme. The Hellraiser movie speaks about portrays the Cuban interdimensional portals and demons as they call themselves. Very interesting. So intriguing is the cutting-edge technology, especially in the electronic processors, that some suggest is one of the many more advanced intelligence technologies that have already developed, not only as a quantum computer, but a biological computer. So you can see here in the different cities and different images of down, up and down. Inside of the square, you can see the bited apple. You can see the stairs coming down from the cube figure. That is no more than getting into an interdimensional portal or some kind of a ritual. You can see the one in San Francisco as well, and you can see the other one in there. I can really check. It says San Victoria Gardens. Okay, so what we'll see here is that what they are saying is that they liked already because they're going to put it in whatever the message behind it. This image is as simple as known in the background of the famous cube, the Metatron, and representation of someone's here and to saying what they're doing. So here have an illustration, and the other frame of decoration acquires greater importance as symmetrical, responding to unknown symbolism, but micrograph arranged in the shape of a multi-pointed star is enhanced by decorations. You see the illustration from the Leningrad Codex. It's an extraordinary example of medieval Jewish pictorial expression. So who would they really serve? We saw already 700 before Mashiach. We saw already in the time of Mashiach when they had the text on the Acts, and we see here again, almost in the medieval Jewish, still going with this service. In the decoration of folio 476 are described, and the illustrator have composed a decoration of geometric type with numerous triangles, trapezoids, and geometrical shapes, which are inscribed with a rectangular frame with an effect harmonious and interesting to attract attention of the reader. The symbolic value of the Star of David. The parchment reaches 33.8 to 29.8 centimeters. How about that? It's pretty interesting. Then why did the Roman high priest use it to? We're going to enter to something is called the Tetragrammaton, the Pentagrammaton, and the Adam Katmon, which is a Judeo-Christian syncretism. It's a part of what we're going to see here. It's very short, but it's very, very deep into what the obscurantism has done to this part of the Roman Catholic Church. The Pentagrammaton of Yahshua in Hebrew is a constructed form of the Hebrew name of Jesus, originally found in the works of Athanasius Kitchener or Johann Baptist Gottschedel in the 1619 in other late Renaissance esoteric sources. The Pentagrammaton or Yahshua has no support in archaeological findings as the Dead Sea Scrolls or inscriptions, nor in the rabbinical texts or the forms of Joshua. Scholarship generally considers the original form of Jesus to be Yeshua. That's not in the scriptures. You cannot find this name in any of the ancient scriptures for this name. The Pentagrammaton or fivefold is an adaptation of the Tetragrammaton, but additional shin has added to the Yud Hey Bab Hey. So it is the Yud Hey Shin Bab Hey, and it looks like that. So we talk about the image of this painter did it in there, and the interpretation of the Yud Hey Bab Hey with the shin in the middle as the Adam Katmon formed in the Pentagram-aton and represented of the Jesus and these people. Who were these people who were trying to represent this? Okay, so the Tetragrammaton, Pentagram-aton, Yadman Kanman, it was given a basic transliteration to GHSV and or all of this. It was null or above or ish in the Latin. So I and J were they not really clear distinguished as letters of the alphabet, nor were the U or the UV. So this could be in a supplies with the further vowels or pronunciability. It was coincidence that the first three letters of the consonant transcription AIS, AH, IH, VH, etc. were identical to the old HS or GHS, which is the monogram of the name of the Jesus. So the Jesuits write down there the IHS, and they like to play with the monogram of the name of the Jesus. And it's something that I found interesting into the Kabbalah inscription, the way they practice into this Roman Catholic evangelical Christian churches, is how they pray and worship their God. They said they opened it like that in the Osiris lane. There's part of the Kabbalah and the inscriptions of how they should pray or meditate. The Isis morning, the Apophis rising, and the Apophis and the Osiris rising. Sorry, I found it very interesting, and I say, wow. Okay, so one more, and we're gonna get into a book which is called The Tree of Life. I'm gonna see only the glossary of it. Only the glossary of it. We're gonna see some kind of a language that we can have to take out of our Bibles and see where it comes from and why is the scripture in there. So you see there the Pentagrammaton, and you see that they use the Tetragrammaton language in there. So we see here in images of how they supposedly make the seal on the floor, the people put in the dead to summon the dead or talking to the spirits, and the invocation to the divine entities or whatever. So the first one that we're seeing is Abano Pietro or Peter of Abano. He's an Italian-born physician, philosopher, astrologer, the author of Grimoire known as the Heptameron or magical elements, which emphasize the practical magic concerned with the spirits, the elements, and the angels of various hours of the day. Abano Pietro is from 1200s to the 1300s. Remember that Buried Francis self-described study of chemistry, metaphysics, and natural and occult philosophy. The metaphysics and the occult philosophy. He published the Magus of Celestial Intelligentsia in 1801. The material covered in Magus was largely taken from Agrippa's The Three Books of Occult Philosophy in the 1500s. 1500s again. Bennett Alam from 1872 to 1923 adapted the original Golden Dawn. This is one of the most occultist societies today known, whose second order motto was Lehi Hour, let there be light, he wrote, and Liber Isafel, an invocation of thought, and a ritual for the evocation until visible appearance of the great spirit of whatever is written. For a time, Bennett, that was friend of the teacher of Alice Crowley in 1900s. He moved to Ceylon and studied Buddhism. Bennett entered the Buddhist monastery and became Bhikkhu Anandametta. A bit more, esotericism is the occult science of the sacred or inner science. That's what they understand in the esoteric and the occultist sciences. Esotericism is the occult science, and is the sacred or the inner science study. In the Eucharist and the Church, the central sacrament of worship of many Christian churches, which is instituted in the Last Supper, in which bread and wine representing the body of the blood of Jesus Christ are consecrated and consumed. Communion. In the Golden Dawn, a similar rite is called the mystic repast of Feast of Osiris is performed. The mystic repast of Feast of Osiris. Remember that the God of the sun performed it. Whatever initiatives partake of the four elements said represent the reconstituted body of Osiris. Evocation, a ritual designed to manifest or to evoke a spiritual entity from an invisible realms into the magician's shield for awareness or visible appearance, whether physically or astral. Can author involve invoking a spirit into a triangle of art which lies outside of the protective magical circle, remember the seal of Solomon, surrounding the magician, sometimes calling summoning spirits. See evoke. When they call evoke from Latin evocare, to call from a spiritual force of entity, and a spiritual force of entity, according from some traditions, this means calling forth a force from outside of the psyche. So when you saw this relation to any kind of a relations into the Judaism, the Judeo-Christian religions, when they say invoking or calling, and the way that they call their entities is something really, really dark. Fourth book of occult philosophy, a magical text published in 1567 from and attributed to Agrippa. The real author is often referred to pseudo-Agrippa. Gematria, part of the literal Kabbalah, that segment of Kabbalah which interprets the codes of the Hebrew words in mystical texts. Gematria is from the Hebrew numerology that use the numerical values of letters in the Hebrew alphabet. Names of the words are converted into numbers in order to find hidden meanings. Words which have the same numerical value are taught the same importance and significance of relationship. Not everything that we interpreted in Torah is related to Gematria. Noti Seauton, Greek for known dead self, is a maxim inscribed above the door of the temple of Apollo of Delphi that implies knowledge of one relationship with a divine cosmos. Knowing yourself. If you see anything into is known today into psychology and sociology, that you have to know yourself first in order to love the others, well, is meaning exactly the contrary what Yeshua told us to do, that is, love the others as you love yourself. You don't start loving yourself first, then the others. It's exactly the contrary. It's called egocentrism. God or deities, powerful immortal beings in high rank in the spiritual hierarchies. They command lesser spirits and have been worshipped by humans for centuries. The various celestial and terrestrial gods are often seen in specific portions and expressions for the transcendent God. It's something that we really see in the Hinduism. Grimoire. Something we're going to see some of the footage, some grimoires from the French word of grammar, a magical text, a medieval book containing magical procedures or spells for summoning spirits. The Oxford English Dictionary cites Arthur Edward Wayne is the first source of the usage of the word. Invisibility, the magical act of withdrawing force mysterious environment in such a way in order for people to fail notice a magician's presence or immediately forget that they have seen the magician. Imagine these forces. Invocation, a ritual of portion of a ritual designed to establish inner communication with a higher spiritual entity. The magician allows a higher being to use a physical body as a vehicle for communication with the physical world. A potent prayer used to invoke a deity. Invoke, so, is to call a spiritual entity, to call the power or presence of higher spiritual entity into psyche. Again, I just cannot stop thinking into these churches that they just keep praying very strongly, emotionally into these things. What they will be calling Hermetic of the rating of Hermes Trismegistus, or the words ascribed to him, having to do with the occult sciences, especially alchemy, astrology, and magic deriving from Western sources, Egyptian, Judeo-Christian, and Greco-Roman. Judeo-Christian and Greco-Roman. They know where they got from. Iamblichus, a Neoplatonic philosopher for the 4th century, in our era, in the Mashiach era, he was the first Neoplatonist to dislodge the Plotnian's intellectual mysticism in favor to theurgy or a theology that included all the mysteries, rituals, myths, and deities of syncretism and paganism. Most of his writings has been lost, but his teachings can be found in the works of Proclus. His works include the mysteries, theological principles of arithmetic, and on the Pythagorean life. Ambiclus was known as the divine. Of course, he had to call himself divine, or the inspired. The Emperor Julian, considering him as the intellectual equivalent of Plato. The works of Ambicus were very important in later development of ceremonial magic, especially for the theologians. Western occultism, the magic and mysticism in Europe and the Western world is descended from Mesopotamia, Egypt, Greece, and Rome. The Western tradition also includes Jewish, Arabic, indigenous European magic, and geographic territory is approximately equal to the area covered by the Christianity. Western occultism. White magic is performed by good purposes, often invoking beneficent entities. Ceremonial magic performed by spiritual growth. Crazy. Westcott Y1, 1843 and in 1925, primary founder of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, established in 1888 of the Hermetic Society, whose members are taught by principles of occult science and the magic of Hermes. His order mottos were Sapere Aude, dare or to be wise, and non omnis moriar, I shall not wholly die. Author of Introduction to the Study of the Kabbalah and Numbers, their occult power and mystic virtues. Westcott also compiled the publish of the Hermetic text with the Collectanea Hermetica. And the last one, but not the least, Yeshua, also called the Pentagrammaton, a Greek word which means 5-letter name. This refers to the Tetragrammaton, or 4-letter name, Yud-He-Bab-He, which the letter Shin is placed in the center of the name. Those 4 elements, Yud-He-Bab-He, 5, water, air, and earth, are completed, crowned, and governed by the 5th spirit. Pentagrammaton significance of the Pentagrammaton is exposed led by Johannes Rich in his book De Verbo Mirifico, or Concerning the Miracles World. So here I have some books where I have some grimoires, position of this one is the Erechiridion, and it's attributed to Carlo Magno, and you can see that the Pentagrammaton in there in his books. I have the next one. It's the grimoire of Cornelius and the Clavicles of Solomon, and you see the Pentacle of Solomon as the pentagram and the hexagramma in there. Very clear what these guys have in these books, why they have that. The Book of the Occult Philosophy, in general, it refers to a mode of philosophical thought that seeks metaphysical truth hidden, occult behind the surfaces on the natural, celestial, and divine worlds. Because its practitioners use magical means, it seeks the truths. So, in this book, the other one is the Occulta Philosophy, book number 3 is by Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa's study of the occult philosophy, acknowledged as the significant contributions on the Renaissance. Philosophical discussion concerns the powers of ritual magic, its relationship with religion. The first book was printed in 1531 on Paris, Cologne, and Antwerp, while the full 3 volumes first appeared in Cologne in 1533. Paris. We know that about the history and Revelations, what it talks about. Okay. The darkest, the symbol concentrates the geometry that the Bible represents the mark of the beast, that we read again. The strangest thing is that it could represent the mark of the beast, that represents in Revelations, which is 666. Could it be that there will be something very dark behind those who have this movement in favor in Israel? In that in reality, rather they have usurped the place and are about to bring the beast or the false Messiah, which they would receive both Jews and Gentiles in other religions? Could it be that the great deception of apostasy and the false Messiah are linked to the Zionist movement pseudo-Jew? Professor Scholem, one of the greatest Jewish scholars in our time, is a Jewish researcher of Kabbalah and mysticism, and one of the founders of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, not weird, conducted a 50-year study on the history of the Star of David. He published a brief summary of the study in 1949, shortly after the symbol was chosen to appear on the national flag of the new state. Also remember that it was the seal adopted by the Rothschilds, who are proxies to the protectors of Israel Zionism. Now we understand the professor is a researcher of the old Kabbalistic system of magic. One of the reasons the religious Pharisees and Sadducees hated Yeshua so vehemently and considered to have Romans to kill him, even though they knew he was a prophesied Messiah, was because we're Lucifer worshippers. That is why Yeshua told them, "You, Father, is the devil," because it happens that the Pharisees and Sadducees were practitioners of the mysticism and oral tradition, which has codified and written in the 12th century, and it was called Kabbalah. Of course, it makes perfect sense that the use of the hexagram and the national symbol of Israel came out of the ancient Kabbalah practice. Since Professor Scholem is a Kabbalah researcher, he would have connect understanding of the origins of the hexagram. So in this article, Professor Scholem said that the Magen David is not a Jewish symbol and therefore is not a symbol of Judaism. Well-meaning Israelites just don't want to hear the common symbol of Israel, that the hexagram printed in the blue on the white background, the national flag, is satanic. They prefer to hear that hexagram has always been the symbol of ancient Israel. Such as a lie makes the current hexagram more easily accepted. But now this modern Israeli scholar, a Kabbalist at that, reveals that the hexagram was definitively not the symbol of ancient Israel, but was invented and the national symbol in the 19th century. Furthermore, this modern scholar revealed that the first use of the hexagram as a national symbol occurred exactly in the first Zionist conference in 1898 in Basel, Switzerland. He wrote down, Magen David is a mystical talismanic Zionist symbol in a book by Professor Gershon Scholem published in 27 years after the Jewish scholar dead. Scholem argues that the Star of David was not an ancient Jewish symbol, but rather a magic emblem that was not only taken by the Jews in the 19th century. Few books are published 60 years after being written. One such book is Professor Gershon Scholem, Magen David, History of a Symbol. Let's call it the book History of the Symbol, which is published in only now, 27 years, a bit more than 27, it's almost 30 years now, or 35 if I'm not wrong, years after the author's death. Professor Scholem is one of the greatest Jewish scholars in our time, a researcher of Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism, and one of the founders of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Carried out a 50-year study of the story of the Star of David, he published a brief summary of the study in 1949, shortly after the symbol was chosen and appeared the national flag in the new state. In this article, Professor Scholem states that the Magen David is not a Jewish symbol and therefore a not symbol of Judaism. The study has recently been edited into a book by Professor Abraham Sapira. The new book looks like a religious, mystical, national, and political aspects of the Star of David. Of course, magical protections for danger is what he's write down. According to Scholem, the hexagram symbol was once known as the Seal of Solomon, and it was used to decorative motif and symbol to which magical powers were attributed. It was first documented by the seal of Ben Yahushua Ashiyahu during the late kingdom period 2700 years ago. 2700 years ago. Not close by, but just very close by when Amos told them where that come from. Apparently, once again, a relief of synagogue in Capernaum built during the 3rd century AD alongside another symbol as swastika. No one claims that these two graphic symbols had been no more than decoration. During the Second Temple period, the 7-branch menorah instead of the Star of David was considered the Jewish symbol, according to Scholem. The Seal of Solomon was a period in Jewish mysticism during the 6th century before Mashiach in a talisman with 2 lions and a Star of David in the center. Or not, are secret as the Masons, Illuminati instruments of the Jesuits, and of course Rome are behind the great and the last trap of Satan being the usurpers and his return. He's an image of the Pope with the Mayor Synagogue and praying from January 17, 2016. Could we trust the leaders of founded those who currently lead the Jewish state in wanting to please the Eternal? We have already seen that both founders of the current leaders are 33-degree Masons, and anyone knows that from the 30th to the 33 degree they worship is Satan, the fallen angel.